All right, folks, now that we've been talking about pollution, how can we prevent it in the first place or reduce the amount of pollution that we have right now? So, this is apparently a PowerPoint where I did not add the course and exam description stuff into, so please make sure that you revisit that before we move forward. Okay, so these are the biggies. Regulatory practices, conservation practices, which means not only do you tell people to stop, you pick ways. The best way to reduce any sort of impact that you have on the planet is to not have that impact in the first place. So not only do cleanup, but do prevention, and then alternate fuels. All right, this is an odd thing that was mentioned in your course and exam description, vapor recovery nozzles. You can see that there are two types. There's one right here, it's the plastic flappy thing, and then also this accordion looking boy. Remember that gasoline is a volatile organic compound, and so if you do not have a tight seal when you are dispensing it into your gas tank, you have a lot of that vapor, and you know that, summer and July, and it's kind of hit your face, you can smell it. Well, these were mandated by the EPA up until 2012 because new cars now contain their own kind of sealing area, so when you put the gas nozzle in there, it's not a problem anymore. Now, of course, the downside to that is not everybody drives a new car. But the reason I point this out, this vapor recovery nozzle system type thing, is number one, it's on the course and exam description. Number two, you need to understand why it exists, because it keeps volatile organic compounds out of the air. Why do you care? Because that's a main component to make photochemical smog. But also, you may have gone to gas stations that don't have these anymore. So you have no idea what the heck these are. Teacher friends of mine who live in California, these are still all over the place. Here in Florida, you have some of those back roads, gas stations, you're taking some of the back roads up to Orlando, not so much. So just be aware of what these are, what purpose they serve, and vaguely be aware of the fact they're not really required anymore because newer gas tanks now have a seal, so that keeps the vapor from escaping as you're filling your car. Catalytic converters, this is something that we had already talked about in some additions I made to your book notes. What you need to understand is that this is the last thing that your exhaust goes through in your car before it hits the outside atmosphere. It comes in, you have HC, remember, stands for hydrocarbons, you have carbon monoxide and NOx. All of these things are not good. Why? Hydrocarbons contribute to photochemical smog. NOx, again, contribute to the formation of photochemical smog. Carbon monoxide, not good. So through a magical process that you don't need to really understand, and I will post the video so that you've got it there, it creates this stuff. Atmospheric nitrogen, which is N2, water vapor, and then carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is still a greenhouse gas, but it is not harmful for human health in the way that carbon monoxide is. Now, what you need to understand about this, and I wish I had a better picture, is there is something called a catalyst in there. And what a catalyst is, it's either platinum, palladium, or rhodium. A catalyst is something that makes a reaction go faster without being used up itself. It is like making a sandwich on a table as opposed to trying to make it on a little shelf in your fridge. It just makes the whole process go faster. So, another way that we can remove pollution out of the air is through something called scrubbers. Your book did a pretty good job about talking about a couple of these. All a scrubber is an active filtration system that removes pollution created through combustion before it hits the air. Now realize again, in this, unlike this, in this case, the pollution that is removed doesn't go away. It is not magically transformed into something else. Through the power of chemistry, it is actually removed from the air. Why is that a problem? It has to go somewhere. So you have wet scrubbers, and it does exactly what it sounds like, which is it uses water to remove a lot of there could be other stuff in there, mostly particulate matter, and then some gases that will dissolve in the water. If you include a chemical that will react with those gases, you can create a product, let's say like sulfuric acid or nitric acid, that you can then pull out of the air. It goes from being a gas to becoming aqueous. So this is great for basically hitting most of what's produced by burning fossil fuels. This is when we're talking about this stuff in developed countries, we largely mean coal-fired power plants. Dry scrubbers don't use water, duh. So they're either going to use chemicals, or they're going to use a vacuum to vacuum out particulates, or they're going to use charges to pull stuff out. So you have something like this, where you have, it's called an electrostatic precipitator, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You use the same sort of static electricity that makes your socks stick to your shirt when you pull it out of the dryer, by charging the particles negatively, and then you pass them through a positive plate, and the dust sticks to the plate, and then you can go ahead and collect it that way. So you can also use chemicals. This would technically be a wet scrubber because you are using things that are wet to go ahead and react with, again, sulfur dioxide here. And you will then react it with water and then calcium carbonate to produce CaSO4, which is, again, you're going from a gas to something that is a solid, or if it's in water, aqueous ions that you can then remove and take elsewhere. It is always better to not produce this stuff in the first place. So how can you do that? Walk and ride your bike instead of getting in a car. When you do get in your car, make sure you're carpooling. Mass transit systems, alternate fuels. A lot of those fuels that do not produce air pollution, nuclear power, solar, wind. Make your cities more compact. Find ways to not produce this stuff in the first place. All right, these are just some articles that are showing you that people are making these choices and making these changes. Pros to these, again, always it's an economic benefit because you are training people and giving them jobs that did not exist before to create these, to implement these things, and then also to do upkeep. Of course, the con is a lot of these things cost money to start with. Make sure you have a lid on your dry cleaning fluids. Remember, that's a volatile organic compound. First, already talked about this stuff. Vapor guards. Controlling lighter fluid, that's another volatile organic compound. Understand that wood-fueled fireplaces not only are creating air pollution, you also have the possibility of carbon monoxide being released into your house. God, don't burn your garbage. Please don't do that. It's better for you to recycle, but more importantly, it's better for you to not use it in the first place, or not make it in the first place. I wish we were getting to solid waste before the national exam. We'll talk about it after. So, again, driving on certain days of the week, depending on the last number on your license plate. Mass transit, again. If you have mass transit that runs on something like a battery, or it runs on natural gas, you can take natural gas and compress it so it becomes a liquid, and then you can run on natural gas, and it certainly doesn't produce that particulate matter or sulfur dioxide, or in a lot of cases nitrogen compounds. There are garbage trucks that run now on natural gas. Again, carpools. How do you force people to carpool? You either create a special lane for them so they can get where they need to go faster, or you force them to pay a toll. Makes a difference. Makes a difference. Makes a difference. Makes a difference. All right, remember again, you can always impose fees and fines. You can always clean it out of the air, but it's always better to not have it in the air in the first place.